Berlin to Bannau Brycheiniog National Park in Wales. 1,400 kilometers or 807 miles by train and bus to a new country, Wales, for a little trail running and hiking and to learn a bit more about Welsh culture and heritage. I also met up with Jodie Bond, a writer and the head of communications for the park, to find out why they dropped the English from the park names, what it has to do with climate change, and the surprising culture wars that followed. Then in Cardiff, I joined Ieuan and Sian for an evening taste of Wales. The journey to London and then Wales begins now. The first leg of my trip kicked off with the new European sleeper train overnight from Berlin to Brussels. Definitely not a new train nor super shiny, but the giddiness is starting to set in. I get excited about these little rides. First impressions, a little on the schlubby side, but we'll give it a shot. Don't really have much other choice. We're here now, going to Brussels. Hoofka. Well, good morning. Not the best sleep ever, according to my watch. Let's see here. I got 4 hours and 29 minutes and sleep quality of 48. I definitely remember waking up, twisting and turning. Bed's kind of hard. Bed actually reminds me a lot of the hard beds in Laos, so any Laotians when I get from Berlin to Brussels, I got a train bed for you. We roll into Brussels right on time, and I head straight to my Eurostar connection for London, which is more like waiting around in an airport than I thought it would be, complete with the obnoxious, perfume, suffocating duty-free detour. Fortunately, there's no plane on the other side, rather a gloriously long train waiting at the platform. A couple of hours later, we pull into London St. Pancras Station, and I head straight for my Shoreditch hotel, where I'm staying a couple of nights for work. With a little time to kill, I lace up for an unusually sunny run around London before stopping by the Borough Market, where you've got everything from Belgian chocolates and British pies to wild mushroom risotto. Duly noted to come back sometime with a big appetite. Good morning. It's last morning in London. Had a nice little breakfast. Had a nice time in London. But before I head out of London, which I'm doing this morning, grabbing the train to Wales for weekend hiking, weekend in nature, weekend in Welsh nature, learn a little bit more about Wales. But before I do, I've gotten up early enough and left myself enough time to make one stop in London that I've been wanting to make for a while now. And here's a clue, it has to do with noshing. If you know me, then you won't be surprised that the answer is Bagel Bake Brick Lane Bakery. Most associate bagels with New York, but Polish Jews first brought B-E-I-G-E-L bagels to London in the mid-19th century. Devotees say London bagels are the best of both the Montreal and New York bagel worlds. Bready and chewy. That and a poppy seed-laden pretzel will satiate my nashi needs on the trip to Wales, which is about to take a little longer than expected. I don't think I've ever truly appreciated how gorgeous Paddington Station is. I think I could live here. I would like an apartment above Paddington Station, please. Speaking of Paddington, in travel shows and videos, people often talk about the cool films inspired by certain destinations. They're usually gritty art films. I know Bourdain did this a lot. Don't get me wrong, I love those movies. But something about Paddington 1 and 2. And maybe we could do a pause on like a whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and get the Paddington Cinematic Universe, because sometimes you just need a little Paddington in your life. So I was all giddy and ready to go board my train to Meath to start my little Wales journey, and the train was canceled. Luckily, the woman was very kind and gave me a new itinerary, but now I've got 3 transfers instead of just 1. So And I'll get in much later. But, no. Could be worse. I'm finally here in Brecon, Wales, and I'm going to meet shortly with Jodie Bond, who works for the National Park in Communications, and she's going to tell me about the re-emphasis of the Welsh names of the national parks all across Wales, why they're doing that, the importance of Welsh heritage, and what it all has to do with highlighting climate change. You were saying before about like where you're from around this, or you're not from around this region, you're from up north.
I'm from Wales, so I'm from a place called Machynlleth,
Okay.
which is bang in the middle of Wales. It's about an hour and a half north of here, and I moved here 2 years ago, and it's just the most incredible place. I've never felt more at home anywhere. You get this incredible community, beautiful scenery we have here.
What I'm going to be doing is going into the park tomorrow, and I already said I'm not going to say the old. It's not even the old name, because the Welsh name has always been the name.
Right, yeah.
But the old second name. What's the park I'm going to tomorrow?
So you're already in it.
I'm in it. Okay.
You're in it. So yes, Bannau Brycheiniog.
Okay, Bannau Brycheiniog.
Yeah, it'll just as a cheat, so you can just call it Banau.
Banau. Oh,
Banau,
perfect. All right,
yeah.
I like
You're
a
in the
language
Banau.
sheet.
So Banau means the peaks.
Okay.
And Brycheiniog is the old kingdom, so it's the peaks of the kingdom of Brycheiniog.
Oh wow, that's very romantic.
Yeah.
How did the parks come to the decision to say we're gonna drop the English name and only use the Welsh names of our parks?
Well, there were lots of reasons for it. What happened was we were writing a management plan. So this is something all national parks have to do, is that we write a plan about how we're going to look after our landscape. Mm-hmm. But given the huge challenges we face with the nature and climate emergencies, we weren't going to write the normal sort of plan. These plans go for 5 years, but we have written one that goes for the next 50. Okay. And it really just focuses on all of those issues, because if we don't aim high, then we'll lose what's precious about this place.
Right. We were saying before, the name re-emphasis came, and you were surprised that some people didn't take too kindly to it.
Yes. It was quite extreme, some of the reaction we had. We were expecting that some people might not like it, but to have even the Prime Minister commenting on I
actually didn't know the Prime Minister popped in to...
Yeah, even Rishi Sunak came in to say he will still be calling it the Brecon Beacons, despite...
That's got very, not French fries, but freedom fries vibes to me.
No, it became quite a political issue, and that was a real surprise for us.
Okay.
Because we were just using the Welsh name for a Welsh place, and people have been calling it Bannau Brycheiniog since the 5th century. If you go back far enough in time, you'll find that a lot more people spoke Welsh.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But what happened around 100 years ago was laws were brought into place, and in schools in particular, children were penalised for speaking Welsh. So we had a thing called the Welsh knot. So it was a thing you wore around your neck, and if you spoke Welsh in class, you had to wear the knot, and the last child to be wearing it at the end of the day was caned. So they were physically punished for speaking Welsh. So there's what's known as the lost generation, whose parents or grandparents spoke Welsh, but they, trying to do the best for their children, they encouraged them to only use English. And so the Welsh language was lost by a couple of generations, but now it is coming back. There are a lot of, I have friends who have children in school who are learning Welsh, and now as parents they're learning Welsh so they can communicate with their children in the same way that their grandparents spoke to their parents. But there is this gap, unfortunately.
After moseying out a bit further away from Brecon, Jodie and I pop a squat to talk a bit more about Bannau Brycheiniog itself.
We're a living working park, so it's not protected in the same way as some US parks are. That we do have lots of people who live here and work here. We're home to 33,000 people. We're also home to 1 million sheep.
That's something I've always heard, is that there's more sheep in Wales than actual people. Is that like kind of a little
I
gimmick?
believe the figure is there are 4 sheep to every person in Wales.
Oh, so it's true. It's actually okay.
Yeah, so we have, because we have lots of hills here. It's difficult to cultivate vegetables up there, so it's very good for sheep grazing. And I mean, you'll find there's lots of arguments that go on in the park as well about nature restoration and farming. In the park, we're always trying to find that nice balance where both can survive. But of course, you know, that becomes a very, very complex debate then about how that's managed.
I'm wildly giddy about getting further into this park, but first, I gotta fill up and give my body some energy. That means a big dinner at Gurkha Corner, a culinary cornerstone of the Nepalese Gurkha community here. After some veggie-filled momos and a spinach curry, I'm off to bed. For tomorrow, I hike. The next morning, I finally head deeper into the park with a 20-kilometer hike up to Pen y Fan, the highest peak in southern Wales. Good morning from Banau. So a little serendipitous meeting this morning at breakfast. Not out of the realm of possibility around here, but the folks I had breakfast with were also in town for hiking and offered to give me a lift into the park so I didn't have to hike along roads leading to the actual trails in the heart of the park. On the downside, rather, it's an upside. Literally, you start with this ascent, as you can hear from my not at all strained breathing, this steep ascent up to Pen y Fan peak. So that's what's happening now. Alright, at the top of Pen y Fan, the tallest peak in southern Britain, southern Wales. I haven't said it yet, but one reason I decided to hike this instead of run it, which is what I would usually do, is by now my Innsbruck video had come out where I talked about my first DNF. Had a little, I'm guessing, runner's knee injury. Tried to get through it and just couldn't. And that was 3 weeks ago from doing this hike. And yeah, usually I would want to go trail running to see as much as possible, and I just genuinely like it. But injury is making me slow down a bit, and for that I'm at least grateful to have slowed down a little bit in this park. And my knee feels great, so I'll run again soon, probably tomorrow. But not before grabbing the bus back to Brecon and celebrating the day's ramble with a little Welsh cake. Another day, another morning of rehab exercises for my comically sunburned ass. Seriously, a man with my complexion should have a bottle of SPF 100 glued to my sternum. Whenever I come outside in the mornings in places like this, and like get that fresh air and it's so quiet and peaceful you can actually hear the birds, I'm just like, I want this. I want to stay in Berlin. I want those amenities, but like without all the people. Is that so much to ask for? A place like Berlin, but basically where Munich is, surrounded by mountains, with all the amenities of the big city, trams, trains, restaurants, all that stuff. But, less people. Is that so much to ask for? So the plan today is to take the bus out and run back. Not much elevation in this one, as much as I would like to, get lost in the mountains again. I do have to think about making sure my knee stays on the recovery track. So just doing like 12 and a half, mostly flat, at least flat for around here, back to Brecon, and then onward to Cardiff. Alrighty, well, that looks like the trail, so guess I should run it now. I would love trying to live in one of these boats for a little bit. It seems like it'd be kind of cool. A little cramped, but you've got to practice living in Berlin. Well, this is very lovely. This is reminding me of the towpath trail back home in Cleveland. True to form for Europe. A little smaller. Not as wide of a trail, but a bit more wild. And less development nearby. I mean, you got these views. So although I won't be slogging it like 20 kilometers in the mountains like yesterday, this is a nice consolation prize. Alright, here in Cardiff, and I've got just one last thing to do on this little trip that started in Berlin. Now I'm in Cardiff. Beautiful little Cardiff. And I've been invited tonight to go to, what do they call it? A Taste of Wales. So I'll be having a Welsh dinner and seeing some Welsh music, listening to some Welsh music and poetry. And I guess there's even going to be a limerick competition. If you're not excited about a limerick competition, then I don't know what to say. A limerick competition. This is like the Super Bowl of rhymes. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. So I head straight out to meet with Ieuan and Sian to learn a bit more about the evening's Taste of Wales.
We are here in the Exchange Hotel, and we're here every Sunday and Monday evening. Our guests arrive and they have a lovely three-course meal, but at the end of that, then, the entertainment aspect. There's a tradition in Wales, and it's been going on for years, of what they call something like poems and pints, where people used to go to pubs, have a few pints, and people would read light-hearted poetry. So we've taken that sort of aspect and put a show, an hour show together. Songs, we have your traditional Welsh songs, your traditional folk songs, but then again, we have a tribute to the one and only Tom Jones as well, because a lot of people who come here that they want to hear a Tom Jones song. The Welsh folk scene is quite strong at the moment, but for some reason, you think of Ireland, you think of Scotland, and their sort of folk heritage has travelled across the sea. The Welsh folk scene has travelled across the sea, but is not as prominent as Ireland and Scotland. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's because a lot of Irish songs and a lot of Scottish songs are sung in English, where the majority of Welsh folk songs are all sung in Welsh.
Sian tells me what people need to know about Welsh food.
So a country's cuisine comes from geography primarily. So we have a country with lots of mountains, lots of grass, lots of rain, but we have lots of sunshine too. So we have land which is ideal for livestock. So Welsh lamb, Welsh beef are our specialities, but also we have lots of pork and chicken. We have lots of dairy products. We have an amazing range of cheeses. We have lots of seafood as well because of the coastline. But tonight they have a leek and potato soup. So leek is our national emblem, one of our most famous vegetables. When you eat leeks, it's also very good for your vocal cords. So that's why we sing so well in Wales. So they have a leek and potato soup, which is a traditional Welsh dish. Then they have a chicken dish with a black bomber mash. And black bomber is one of our cheddars from North Wales. And then for dessert, we have a recipe called Banau Brycheiniog. Bara means bread in Welsh and Bryth means speckled. And it's a traditional recipe which is either a fruit loaf when they have yeast in it or a fruit cake. And the dessert tonight is made with the fruit cake version, but it's made into like a bread and butter pudding with a custard, which is, in Wales we say it's lush. With the Banau Brycheiniog, you soak the mixed fruit in tea the night before, so it's really nice and moist. They then have a choice of drinks, Welsh drinks. We have lots of beer, so we're a beer drinking country. Lots of beer, lager, ales, ciders as well. We have lots of spirits. We have Welsh whiskey, Welsh gins, Welsh rums. And we do have wine, Welsh wine. It's a very niche industry, but we have about 30 vineyards as well. So it's quite surprising. People don't think of Wales as a kind of food and drink destination, but we have excellent quality products. And lots of recipes then using those products.
I think worldwide you see a lot of people are returning back to the culinary roots of wherever they're from. Do you see that at all in Wales? Or like younger generations becoming more interested in not necessarily flocking exclusively to international cuisine, whatever that is, but actually taking interest in their own culinary heritage?
So I think if you'd come here 20 years ago, you wouldn't have seen any Welsh food on the menu. It was very trendy, if you like, to have international cuisine. And as a nation, we're very open to lots of different cuisines. We have all kinds. In Cardiff, we have Indian, Chinese, Thai, French, Portuguese, you name it. We're a very multicultural city. But yeah, it's become more fashionable, and which is good news. People are actually going back to their own roots. So you'll see more and more Welsh produce, Welsh recipes on the menu. We could see more. I think we're a bit slow in promoting our own food culture.
That's a shame because after just a few days in the country, there's a lot to be proud of here. I think Jodie summed it up nicely. As I was saying before, I'm not sure how many Americans know a whole lot about Wales. And not to get into for somebody who's not at all impacted by the monarchy, I get really fired up about it. It makes no sense. I'm like, my history is way too old to actually be that fired up about. But I feel like the most famous person associated with it is the Prince of Wales. And I think that's how most Americans would even know anything about Wales. So I would like to counteract that by having you talk a little bit about what should people know about Wales? Like, what's special about Wales? What you said you feel so at home here. What's wonderful about Wales? And that actually had a nice little alliteration. So if you want to use that for tourism, that's all yours.
Thanks so much. That's really interesting because I don't think the Prince of Wales would be anywhere near the top of the list if you asked a Welsh person.
Oh, that's of course I would, and thank God that's not true.
So yeah, I mean, we've got incredible history and mythology here. We've got this amazing flag with a dragon on it. We have a thing called the Eisteddfod here. Arts and culture is really vital for our culture. So children here tend to be, when I've met people from around the world, they're always surprised at how ingrained singing is into our education and music. We all take part in a thing called the Eisteddfod, and so we're put on stage and put on television from a young age to perform. And we are a land of singers and bards. Poetry is very important to us here. And we have some fantastic stories. If you look up the Mabinogion, there's some of the oldest stories in Europe, and they all come from Wales, and it's the first mentions of King Arthur are there.
Okay.
And our fantastic scenery, it's the most beautiful place in the world.